Welcome to today's Explainer. We are setting out on a seriously fascinating journey into the microscopic reality of the brain. And I'll be honest, this journey is going to fundamentally challenge how we view our very own thoughts. We're going to dive deep into the science behind how we actually learn and discover why the everyday way we talk about learning might literally be blinding us to what's really happening inside our heads. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Are the very words you use every single day actually preventing you from understanding the true nature of reality? We rely on language to build knowledge, right? But what if natural language, the everyday speech we use to describe our thoughts and feelings, is actually a deeply flawed tool for understanding the physical universe? The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein absolutely hit the nail on the head when he said, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." This quote brilliantly captures the epistemological paradox we're unpacking today. Our primary tool for gathering and sharing knowledge might actually be a cognitive bottleneck. To understand why, we have to look past the words and peer directly into the biology of the brain itself. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the illusion of words. Think about it. We have to recognize that natural language evolved primarily for social survival. It was meant for coordinating hunts, building villages, cooperating with each other. It was never designed for the rigorous, objective modeling required by empirical science. Because of this evolutionary history, words are pretty much just clumsy boxes for nonverbal realities. Language imposes these subjective, highly human-centric filters that distort our perception. Whenever we use conversational language to describe what our brain is doing, we're taking an elegant, deeply complex physical reality and forcefully stuffing it into a vague, unscientific summary. Which brings us to Chapter 2, Primal Plasticity, specifically habituation and sensitization. To see exactly what I mean here, we need to drop down to the absolute foundational biological level to see how what we casually call learning happens entirely without a single word. What's truly amazing here is the action potential. This electrical pulse spiking from -70 to +40 millivolts is the real language of the nervous system. The brain communicates via these hard, physical electrical pulses, not through abstract concepts. This fundamentally grounds the entire idea of learning in hard, microscopic evidence. Let's look at a super relatable behavior, habituation. Imagine your neighbor's kid gets a brand new drum set and starts playing loudly. On that very first day, you notice it intensely. The first time that stimulus registers, a sensory neuron fires an action potential. Calcium ions rush in, and neurotransmitters are released across the synapse right to the next cell. Your brain reacts vigorously. But let's fast forward a bit. Say trial 50. The kid has been playing those drums every single day. Biologically, the calcium channels have actually inactivated. With repeated stimulation, less calcium enters the cell, which means less neurotransmitter is released. This is a cold, strictly mechanical process called synaptic depression, and it happens completely without any linguistic mediation or conscious decision-making whatsoever. And this is the crucial distinction. In our everyday language, we just casually say we're getting used to it. We anthropomorphize the event, but the cold, hard scientific reality is synaptic depression. The colloquial metaphor actually masks the true biological mechanism. Your cells aren't getting used to anything. Their calcium channels are physically shutting down. We fall into the exact same language trap with sensitization. Imagine someone continuously tapping their foot against your chair until you finally snap. You might say you got irritable or touchy, right? But look at the actual mechanics happening inside you. An aversive event causes an interneuron to release the neurotransmitter serotonin. This serotonin physically activates more calcium channels on the sensory neuron, making it highly excitable. Your irritability is actually heterosynaptic facilitation. No words required. Okay, let's move into Chapter 3, the mechanics of conditioning. Let's scale things up a bit and systematically replace another incredibly common colloquial concept with its stunning biological equivalent. Think about classical conditioning. Pavlov's dogs didn't linguistically learn that a bell meant food. They underwent an elegant three-step physical process. First, there's a temporal pairing of two stimuli, a conditioned and an unconditioned stimulus. Second, this timing perfectly activates specific coincidence molecules in the brain. And third, this triggers structural changes known as activity-dependent facilitation. Let's actually look at how this builds at the molecular level. Early on, you have this receptor called NMDA, and it's literally blocked by a physical plug of magnesium. It's just stuck in there. But as the stimuli are synchronized repeatedly, the electrical potential inside the cell rises so much that it physically expels that magnesium plug. It just pops it out. This allows calcium to flood in, creating structural, long-term changes in the nerve pathways. And this right here perfectly illustrates the grand illusion we live under. We say an organism is forming an association or learning a connection, but organisms don't consciously associate anything. They simply undergo coincidental activity-dependent facilitation. The whole concept of association is just a mentalistic label we invent to summarize what is essentially a vast, mindless chemical synchronization. This brings us to Chapter 4. Instincts as innate blueprints. So if basic learning is totally wordless, what about complex high-level behaviors? Well, let's turn to ethology, the study of animal behavior. Ethologists study what are called fixed action patterns, or FAPs. These are innate, hardwired behavioral sequences that exist long before language ever enters the picture. For example, a male stickleback fish will perform this wildly complex mating dance just by seeing a specific visual cue, a releaser, or a goose will automatically retrieve a displaced egg. These nonverbal scaffolds are modeled by innate releasing mechanisms. They bypass linguistic mediation entirely, proving that profound, complex knowledge about the environment exists completely without words. Which leads us to our final chapter, Chapter 5, Escaping the Cognitive Bottleneck. Let's pit this biological evidence right up against our everyday language to finally unmask the whole illusion. Think about how we talk about our own minds. When you say, "I took a pill and relaxed," you are using natural language to summarize a massive physical event. You're compressing reality. A scientist, on the other hand, would say, the drug molecule acting as a GABA receptor agonist bound to the membrane, triggering inhibition. Our everyday language literally forces us to summarize these elegant physical realities into imprecise, subjective, anthropomorphic narratives. The takeaway here is absolutely massive. From the macro level of quantum physics all the way down to the micro level of neural synapses, our evolutionary language just straight up fails us. Remember, it evolved for hunting and gathering, not for describing the chemical expulsion of magnesium from an NMDA receptor. To truly understand reality, we can't just rely on words. We have to turn to the formal, mathematical, and observational systems of natural science. This is what we call the cognitive bottleneck. It's the literal constraint imposed by our natural languages, limiting our precise understanding of nonverbal physical reality. Whenever we assume that our internal monologue represents the whole truth, we trap ourselves right inside this bottleneck. Which leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending question to consider. Now that you've seen the sheer physical mechanics of learning, the calcium channels, the action potentials, the receptor molecules, how are you going to look at your own thoughts? Knowing that the very words you use to think are inherently limiting, what other realities might your brain be processing right now, completely in silence? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and definitely keep questioning the words you use to do it.